One of my favorite Bible characters is Peter. There's just so much we can learn from him and his life, and especially the things that Jesus did in his life. Recently, I was reading in Luke chapter 22 about Peter, and this is the very last night that Jesus was meeting with his disciples. Later that night, they would go over to the Garden of Gethsemane, and Jesus would be praying when Judas would lead everyone there, and Jesus would be taken away as a prisoner for the trials the next day. But that night, Jesus, even though he knew everything that was coming, he knew all of the anguish, the beatings leading up to the crucifixion, even though he knew all of that was coming, he was still concerned about his disciples. And in one particular part, he was talking to Peter and actually warning Peter about some things that were coming. Here it is in Luke 22, verses 31 through 34. "Simon, Simon, look out. Satan has asked to sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And you, when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers." "Lord," he told him, "I'm ready to go with you both to prison and to death." "I tell you, Peter," he said, "the rooster will not crow today until you deny 3 times that you know me." And in this, one of the things that really strikes me here is just that Jesus knew everything that was coming. Of course, I've already mentioned he knew what was coming for himself, but he knew what was coming for Peter too. And he knew that that night Peter would fall, that he would be ashamed of even knowing Jesus. And 3 separate times before the morning would come, Jesus knew Peter was going to deny even knowing Jesus. And that would be a horrible failure for Peter. And so Jesus knew that, but what Jesus wanted Peter to understand now that would become very important later after his failure is that even though Jesus knew it, he still was putting trust in Peter and preparing Peter that after the failure, that he would not lose his faith completely. He wouldn't be completely destroyed and devastated by it, but that he would actually come back and be even stronger, not only for himself, but for the others, because Peter, being one of the leaders, would need to be the one to give strength and encouragement, unity to the other disciples. And we see that that's exactly what happened, that later on, after Jesus died and after he was raised from the dead, that he continued to teach the disciples some. But once he went back to heaven, he handed over to the disciples that job of starting the church. Peter became one of the foundational men to do that. He did literally help build the church. Jesus knew that capability was in Peter, and Jesus was praying for Peter that after he failed that night, it wouldn't completely destroy him, but he would come back and that his faith would be even stronger and that he would strengthen the other disciples to help build the church. And there are just so many lessons from that are good for us, that help us to understand that God knows when we're going to fail. I mean, he knows everything. There isn't anything we're going to do that will ever surprise him. There's nothing that will ever happen to us that will ever surprise God. And so even though God knows all of our failures, he knows every time we're going to do something wrong, he also is wanting us to get beyond that and to find strength to keep going, to carry on. In fact, the Bible tells us that Jesus, even right now, is doing what he did for Peter, that Jesus is in heaven at the right hand of God the Father, praying for us, praying that we will be strong. And I think some of those same ideas that he knows we're going to fail him, he knows we're going to fall into things that are wrong, but he's praying that that will not destroy us. He is praying that we will be strong, that we'll come back even better after our failures, so that we can live better, but also so that we can encourage the others around us, because there is always someone that my life can impact that can be encouraging and helpful to them, even from my failures. And so I hope that you'll be encouraged today, because there are going to be things happening in our lives that we fail in. But don't let that be something that beats you down and overwhelms you so that you become unable to do anything else. remember, Jesus even now is praying for you. He wants you to return, to come back, and that your faith will not be destroyed, but that you will be strong once again, and that you will be able to help build and strengthen and encourage the body of Christ, other believers that are around you that are part of the church. Thank you so much for being with me today.